Hey, everybody, welcome to Improv FAQ at Length. This is a series of longer conversations about improv topics that have lots of questions surrounding them. I'm James Quesada.
And I'm Bob Wick.
And we have two very special guests with us for this Halloween episode of Show and Tell. Pete Jacokes and Jen Hansen. Welcome.
Yay, thank you.
Hey.
Thanks so much for joining. And very, very excited to talk about, I think, one of all of our favorite shows, which is Stage Fright, a Halloween one-act show. And I'll throw it to the two of you to give a description of what that show is to start us out.
Jen, you want to take it?
Sure. Stage Fright is a, if anybody's familiar with Noises Off or something like that, it's very much a show within a show. It's a mediocre local theater production of Dracula that while that is going on stage, there is a zombie outbreak around the theater, and zombies, of course, get into the theater and somebody gets bit, but the show must go on. So it is the actors trying to continue the Dracula play while everything falls apart around them.
Yeah, and it's so great. It was an hour-long show and directed by Pete and Jen, directed and written by Pete and Jen, and then assistant directed by Bob. And I was lucky to play Dracula, and it was my very first show at Go Comedy, which
that's right.
Yeah,
right.
Well, very first written show anyway. But it was an exciting landmark for me as well. So do you guys remember? I mean, obviously, like, it's a Halloween show, so like a major impetus is like Halloween is coming up when you decide to do it. But like, do you remember where like the concept came from, or like just a early nugget?
I remember. So the year before, we wrote because we only do shows that rhyme. We wrote Space Fight, which was the Star Wars parody. And we, like, the following winter, we had like lunch with PJ, and he wanted to know like what other shows we were working on. And we were like, oh, we've got a great idea for a Halloween show. And he was like, sweet. And then 3-4 months went by and we hadn't written anything. And PJ messaged us and was like, okay, you guys have the month of October. It's locked in. We were like, cool.
Okay.
Okay. So, like, at first it was going to be a sketch show. And
I think we had also been talking about, I'm bad with timelines, but I know at one point there was talk about wanting to do like a kids show on the weekend, like one of the early Go puppet shows on weekends. And then during the week doing a late night show that was like backstage at that, and everything that was, going wrong. And that was more of the adult show. And I think that idea sort of morphed into just doing a backstage or a show within a show.
But yeah, so then, and I know, was it Tilson Street? Is that the street that has a... So we were going to do a show that took place on Tilson Street. I know I still have a script somewhere about two skeletons trying to have dinner.
I forgot about that.
and then we landed on the Dracula play.
Yeah. So Tilson Street, in case people don't know, there is a street in Romeo that goes, it's more like a block now, that goes bananas with Halloween. And they do, thousands of dollars of animatronic props, and they get sponsored. And it's like a haunted house that's an entire neighborhood. And it's really, really cool.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that.
And yeah, we were gonna do something like
because I know about like all the, or not I know about, but when I was younger, my family would drive through all the big like Christmas streets like that. At some point in the December season. But I would have loved to have known about the Halloween street. I would have definitely.
Yeah, it's Terror on Tilson Street. I don't know if it happened this year, but it's really cool to see it going. Usually, look it up on YouTube or something. You should be able to find something. It's pretty cool. Yeah. But so we started writing. I don't know. There's always something so funny about bad local theater and bad theater trying to be really earnest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I want to know about the writing process, and like, because you two had written plenty before and written your show together, but the probably the unique thing that I remember you two talking about in writing it, or talking about writing it once we were in the rehearsal process, is that because so the zombie apocalypse starts. Eric Heilner, who played the stagehand, gets bit and starts turning into a zombie, and he starts biting and infecting other people. And so, as cast members of the play start turning into zombies, they stop being able to play the parts that they're supposed to be playing, and some people have to swap hats and switch costumes and play characters. So there's like a couple layers of characters, where like James is a character in the script and has dialogue, and then Dracula has lines, and then when James has to play somebody else as Mina, then you have to like be juggling all these names in the script. So like, what was it like trying to keep all that stuff in writing?
It's the most complicated script I've ever written. And
it was so incredibly convoluted. Pete and I distinctly remember us sitting in this room, and the only way we could make sense of it was we had all of these little Lego figures out on a
no. That was the second phase.
Oh God, was it?
Because I remember this, because we were arguing because neither of us could understand who was saying what in the script. And I was like, okay, I'm James. This mannequin head is Peterson. That book is Bloomer.
Yeah.
The dog is Carrie. And Ted walked in and just stared at us while we're all holding mannequin heads and masks and being like, this makes sense. What's the matter with you? And then Ted came in with a Lego tray with a bunch of Lego figures so that we could do it that way, instead of screaming at each other with mannequin heads.
Because you're right, too. It was so incredibly convoluted. And I think the script would have like James parentheses real James parentheses as Mina. And so it was just like not only pages of stage direction, it was just pages of who you were and who you were playing at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Which you guys did a great job. By the end of it, I think we could all follow the script just fine. But I'm sure that even though you're not even doing it for you're not submitting it anywhere, it's really it's going to be directed by you, so you don't need to follow anybody's rules. But still, it's got to be tough to how just making a choice on how to format that, James / Mina, James as Mina,
I think Pete and I had worked together so many times, and we'd worked together on shows, and we had, this very similar sensibility with a lot of stuff. So once we got it to a point where it made sense in both of our heads, and I could look at Pete and be like, okay, but this is, and you, so I think we knew it would be difficult to explain, but we could get everybody there, especially if we got everybody in a room and could start blocking and talking people through things. It's like, this is going to make sense. It's going to be cool. I just don't know if I can explain it.
And it started really simple too, because, the writing process started simple because what we did, the three of us, the first thing we did was we watched a really old version of Dracula. I don't remember which version.
I can't remember, but I know we basically just made a script for Dracula. Yeah. Because there really wasn't a script for a Dracula show necessarily.
The first step was we wrote a Dracula play based on an old movie. And then somewhere in my basement, I have a notebook that says kill list. And it's the order in which you guys all died. Because we had to figure out who would die first and in what order. So that when we because all of the scenes between the actors take place in the transitions of the Dracula play. So we had to figure out what order you guys would die so that we could figure out who covered what part as the show continued.
Yeah. And who was working injured and who was getting attacked next.
Really quick, James, how do you feel to know that that Pete has a kill list in his basement and it has your name on it.
My name's on it somewhere. It does not surprise me.
But you're number 5 or 6, bud.
Aw, that's friendship.
So, Bob, were you brought on at any point during the writing process, or was it just like after you were ready to get it on?
Everything was pretty much done. That's when I was working nights. So Pete would text me and like, oh, and by the way, James is Dracula, but halfway through it, he's going to be playing Bloomer's part. And like, I'm trying to build a car. But they would, yeah. But when we got to the point where we started like blocking and getting props together and everything, that's when.
And the deeper into the script, I don't think this. There was a point where it was like, we can't add any more actors,
right?
But then after that, it was like, but what if we add Jeff Mance playing the piano? He has no lines, but he becomes a zombie.
Oh, yeah.
And then accidentally plays Happy Birthday partway through the show. What if we just add that real quick?
Just easily, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was a cast of like 10, right?
9 or 10.
Yeah, this was a big group.
We'll have to add some pictures. There's some really cool cast photos of like after the show, everybody in like blood and zombie makeup and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't that the big note you guys got about, hey, the stage, when you guys are done?
Yeah, it's very rare for a show at an improv theater, Go specifically, because it's improv. It's a lot of very light costuming, very light props, things like that. It's all sort of more imagined. But this, we really wanted it to be, a gory, a little bit more of a detailed experience. I had worked on Evil Dead the musical and Night of the Living Dead the musical, and done a lot of props and costumes and stuff for that. So I wanted this to be, we both wanted this to be something that was actually gory, actually felt like, I thought it would, the more realistic we could make it, the funnier it was going to be.
Right.
Yeah.
And there were 2 notes that we got from PJ because we had apparently made it too scary.
Yes.
Because
too scary for the audience or too scary for the audience? PJ?
Well,
but it was because at one point there's a big explosion outside and the power goes out. And we wanted to trip the emergency floodlights in the theater to add to it. And we had an emergency message that was broadcast on a computer, because that's something that happens.
Yeah.
I forgot about that. That's like at the very end, right?
No, it's in the middle and the ending. In the middle and then at the end.
Yeah.
But our emergency message was too realistic. Was the note from PJ. So we had to tweak it to make it more of a parody. Because
we didn't actually want the audience to think that. I think he was worried about a War of the Worlds scenario, and people panicking. But
yeah,
we could have just put a warning on the door, like when we use a gunshot.
Yeah.
So, first of all, here, let me do this real quick because I found.
Hey.
So it gives me a lot of anxiety, even just thinking about all the effects and costumes and stuff that went into it. I mean, it's part of the reason that I honestly love improv shows is because there's no real commitment to produce the dressing and stage production. But with a show like this, it really is like above and beyond even what most any sketch shows really do. So like, I don't know, like what was the conversation about, like what you could do? Were there things you wanted to do that you didn't end up doing? Or did you pretty much pull off everything you wanted to?
I think we pulled off everything we wanted to.
I think so. I think we kind of knew our limitations at the theater. If it was up to me, it would have been enormous blood sprays and, really ridiculous stuff, and we ended up with just kind of ridiculous stuff, which I was totally happy with.
And we would have had people wear like
ponchos and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it helped coming off of Evil Dead and Night of the Living Dead, because those both had like theatrical immersive elements in them, and they were both shows with character transformations and a lot of big blood work and stuff like that. So it was really good experience seeing how much you could convey with how much it took to convey that gore, I guess.
Yeah. And so you made, if I remember, you made like basically Rice Krispies, right? Or like marshmallow treats that were dyed with blood and whatnot.
Yeah. So there were, all the guts were like pink, marshmallow Rice Krispie things with like pink food coloring in it, and I think some chocolate stuff and maybe some licorice. I don't know. For a while, I was really good at making edible guts.
Yeah,
I can't remember what's in everything now. I know we had intestines too. What the hell were in the intestines?
Oh man,
you'd have to ask Bloomer.
Yeah,
because I'm also trying to remember. We did it 2 years.
Yeah,
and both shows, and we can shift gears and also talk about like actually putting the show up and how the show run itself went. But there was a lot of cleanup in both runs of the show, where we would get off stage and then everyone would was supposed to run around and start picking up all the little bits of brains and guts.
So funny story about that. After the run of the show, we were tasked with doing like a deep clean of the theater, and 8 days later Lily was born, so I didn't do the deep clean because I was at the hospital, so poor Jen had to do it all by herself because I had a newborn.
I mean, it made sense, I guess, given the choice between cleaning a theater and dealing with a newborn. It's fine.
Weird.
Yeah.
But it really, so it was, because of all the special effects, there'd be like blood we had to like mop up, and then we had to like I said, pick up stuff with our by hand too. But if I remember right, I thought that you maybe changed something from first year to second year that made it more a little easier to clean up. Do you remember that at all, Jen?
God, I might have used a more washable formula for the blood.
I
think I added stuff so it would be a little easier to do, especially just because we didn't have, we still had a pretty limited budget, which I blew through and then some very quickly. But, we didn't have multiple costumes. So I was like taking home the stuff at the end of the show. I would go around like, reverse Santa and take everybody's costumes and take them home and wash them and then bring them back.
That's how reverse Santa works.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Not the position, just
Well,
yeah, I don't remember what else we really changed with the show. I think we probably streamlined some of the props once we found out, what really wasn't necessary and what could kind of be mimed. So it was just to make it a little easier, but I think just for that theater space. I know we're going to talk more about what we would change and what we would do differently in the future, but I think that if we were doing this at like an actual theater, I probably would want to go bigger with all of that stuff, with all the blood and effects and props and stuff like that, and have stage hands to help instead of making you guys do it in between.
Well,
instead of adding a character specifically to move props and
truthfully, okay. So let's shift gears and talk about the actual run of the show and like how the audience responded and everything. Because
I'm sorry, real quick. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because I watched it last night, and I started having like traumatic flashbacks to directing it, because there is one scene where Michelle is playing Dan's part and Carrie is playing Carrie's part and holding a skeleton that represents Bloomer. Papandrea is on the ground playing his part. while Jeff is a zombie eating or trying to kill Brian, and Bloomer shows up as a zombie to try to kill Carrie. And I ended up having to split that scene into 3 chunks to direct it because we couldn't like,
there's too much going on.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, you guys just stand there and say your lines. I'm going to organize what happens with Carrie and Bloomer. Cool. You guys stay over there. I'm going to organize what happens with Brian and Jeff. Okay. Now we're going to do the part where you guys are actually acting in the scene because this is so traumatic and I can't handle what's happening around me.
Because even if it looked like there could have been times that it looked really chaotic to the audience and that we were just, having other characters do things for fun. But really, because we had that framework for that Dracula show, they really were keeping that show going. Yeah. I think otherwise, we could not have kept it straight in our head. So we had to have something that was the outline and the thing that they were working towards and the thing that we could fuck around with. So we were trying to stick to that as much as possible. Yeah.
But then on the other end of it, it was super fun because anytime you guys in rehearsal would fuck up a line, if it sounded funny or if it sounded like someone who's losing blood would mess up that line, we'd keep it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there were a ton of times that lines got flubbed in rehearsal where I was like, nah, we're gonna keep that. I think at one point Dan was supposed to say, the creature can smell your fear. And he fucked up and said flare.
Yeah.
We're keeping it. The damn right the creature can smell your flare.
Yeah. So people loved it. People loved Halloween shows, and I think this one just delivered on everything that you would want out of a Halloween show.
And for 6 years, the people kept because however many actors kept saying "Sorry, Michelle."
Yeah.
Show "Sorry, Michelle" became a catchphrase for a few years.
Yeah. Yeah. So, were there anything that was pleasantly surprising or interesting about the way, the feedback you got from it, or the reasons people liked it and whatnot that you can remember?
I remember being relieved that people liked it as much as they did. Not that they wouldn't enjoy a Halloween show, but because it's a little weird, it's a little convoluted. I was like, is this just going to be too complicated and too goofy for people? And people were totally on board with it. People were coming back to see it multiple times and just really had a lot of fun with it. So that was a delight to see.
Yeah. Again, I think it's one of those. It's it makes it's so much harder to follow on paper, but it actually makes easier sense acting it out. But it just feels like, oh man, there's too many layers going on. But really, you guys did such a great job directing it, and the performances and everything, and so what feels like it could just be a hot mess of story to follow actually probably felt pretty simplified because you guys did the heavy lifting in putting it together.
Aw, shucks.
It was, and we really lucked out, I think, because the cast was so into it and the cast was so amazing and willing to do whatever and there was a lot of patience among the cast to let Pete kind of figure out all of those beats, or let us kind of sit there and figure out how something was going to look, because we weren't coming into it we kind of had to see how it was going to work out when we put it up on its feet.
Yeah.
And everybody was great with that.
There was some stuff that made really, really good sense on paper, and then as soon as it was on stage, it was like, "What the hell is?"
Yeah, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
But so I'm trying to remember exactly how much work we did with the special effects things before opening night, because now that you mentioned that, Jen, of trying things out and being willing to go for it with certain aspects, I think I want to say the blood squirt thing I might not have gotten until opening night, and there were a couple of us that would use these little capsule tubes to when we bit somebody to squirt it on their neck or whatever and make blood squirt.
Those were Pantene deep conditioning treatment bottles.
Yeah.
I found there was so much to do, and in hindsight, it would have been smart to pull in other people to help. But it just at the time, I was like, oh no, it'll be fine. We'll do it. It's no big deal. And but yeah, we had those little blood tubes. Bloomer had like a big bag of blood that she would hold on her neck as she was starting to bleed out, because we wanted it to be this really ridiculous amount of blood just pouring out of her.
There's in the recording at one point, because she's got the thing on her neck, she bows to Dave and fountain of blood like just goes. It's just so disturbing.
Yeah.
In the recording, I think it's in that scene. At one point, some random woman in the audience went, "Oh my god!"
Yep.
And
which is such a delight. Oh god, that's exactly what you want to hear.
When that happened, like that got a laugh, but like Carrie Parmenter like pointed at the lady and was like, "I know, do something!" Like. Just the amount of blood that was coursing on Bloomer. It's just one lady. Oh my god.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that up on YouTube, Pete?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I should watch it.
If you search Stage Fright and Bob's name on the YouTube, it should be the first thing that pops up.
Excellent.
Yeah, which my mom had been waiting for that for years.
Sorry.
Every time I would bring up,
Bob was busy putting 40,000 other videos up on YouTube.
And also, I don't know if we said the specific year, but this was 2011, right? That the first run of it was. And then for, up until like a month ago, every other time that I mention, the next thing that I'm working on, my mom will go, "You know what I really liked is that Stage Fright show." And I'll be like, "I know you do." I'll let you know if I find it on YouTube. And yeah, it's up there now. So she's very happy about that too.
Well, good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so going back to the special effects stuff, because part of, I think you two were nudging the cast to try to keep it somewhat controlled, but like hit someone in the audience with the blood if you can.
Yeah. It's this very difficult targeting. It's like, if you're going to hit something, hit a person, but only like people who seem like they're in the front row and they kind of want to get hit. Don't go too far. For God's sake, don't get it on the curtains at the theater. We're never going to end up, we'll get shit forever from Tommy.
Yeah.
Aim for the stage, but also for a person, but don't get it on the carpet.
Yeah.
That sweet spot.
Yeah.
I remember
like you guys are kids with Play-Doh.
Right. There's a moment where I would jump out from behind the offstage emergency exit door to kill Carrie, and with my little, what was it again? Neutrogena?
It's Pantene. It was a little Pantene squib.
Tube. My goal is to try to bank shot it, like just so it splashes kind of like off of Carrie's neck. But there was at least one night where I missed Carrie's neck entirely, and it just squirted like a sniper just out right in the front row. Just and I don't even know if anybody but the person who got hit by it knew that it was flying through the air. But again, I think people love that about the like Halloween horror show experience is a little bit of like a splash zone, right?
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. I think we had talked about doing like a splash zone or something, and I think that was nixed pretty quickly.
Fast. I remember that conversation.
The powers that be, but
well,
I know there's still some blood stains somewhere on the stage.
They're still up there. Yeah, there's still blood spatter all over that theater.
Is that true? There's still some spots that you can see. I remember there was one backstage for the longest time before they painted the walls. That was just like this blood smear. Or maybe it was makeup or something, but it was in the back hallway, and it was like, ooh.
The back hallway used to have, because people would just dump stuff out the back door, and I remember there would just be these like rivulets of just blood rolling down into the parking lot.
Yeah. Yeah, we were very much kids just like in trouble, like you said, kids with Play-Doh backstage, just like, sorry, I can't help it.
But it was great. You guys were so gung-ho for everything, and even there were times that you had to, that changing makeup that you had to do when you became zombies. We'd have little like makeup kits planted on bits of the stage, so you would have to like sort of fall with your like head and one arm off stage, so you could like quickly do your makeup as best you could, just doing it blind. But it worked really well.
Because like Dan died on stage and nobody moved him, so like he had to fall behind the archway. And when Jeff died, he just fell on his keyboard, so Jeff never left the stage. So he had to like hide underneath his keyboard and like do his zombie makeup.
I forgot about that. They had to do that blind.
Yeah.
Back up.
I mean, we were like you said, doing the quick change makeup, and even with like the mirrors back there, which we couldn't really turn on the light because the curtains would be open past like the halfway point of the show. That like there's a pretty clear shot from the audience to backstage, and we just have like the blue light on, so you still have to do it in kind of like half light, but we at least had a little bit of light in the mirror. Dan and Jeff just were on their sides scooping out makeup.
Finger painting.
Well, I remember too, because I think it was Jeff's idea, but Carrie has a monologue at one point, and she looks at him like for comfort, and he coughed up blood.
That's right.
So like at one point he put like a pellet in his mouth, and then as soon as she looked at him, he just would be like, "Wow," and then blood would pour.
Yeah. Well, and so I gotta say, as just learning experience or most memorable experience doing the show as a cast member, being Dracula, that I will never forget. The very first night, I thought it was so cool to be Dracula and to begin with, again, like in the show and for Halloween and
you were
whatever.
Such a good Dracula, James. My God, you were such a find.
Entrance. Entrance,
one of the best entrances of any character.
Next to Disco Cat. I mean,
the first scripted show I've ever done, outside of like high school or college, and even then, it's a big, deal for me, and getting those doors to open and then coming out in the Dracula costume, which Jen very beautifully designed. And then a round of applause just for the entrance.
Walking on stage.
Experience that I'll never forget, of like, wow, the power of staging and like orchestrating a moment, even during a comedy show, can really have like a very cool effect. And I think just about every show, there was some kind of applause for that entrance. Which I've never, even though like I've hardly ever experienced that for any other reason. Maybe Tall Prince was like another one that got kind of entrance, but yeah.
I think that show, like maybe it's a lot of Halloween shows too, but that show had an energy that's almost, it's not the same as like a Rocky Horror or something, but everybody knows they're going in to see something that's kind of fun and scary. So like anything that's done well, it's not just the enjoyment of it, but also just like, oh, that's so cool. I'm so excited.
Well, and James, you did such a great job with it. Like the presence you had coming out as Dracula, and then like what we were talking about before we came on the air, like in the next scene you're playing James, and like you're like Renfield, and then 2 seconds later you're like, James, what are you doing out here? It's spooky back there.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
Like, to go from all like oozing all this charisma to
it's like, spooky back there.
Yeah, what was definitely fun too is playing around with the contrast between like whoever I like for I'm sure like Dan and Brian would agree too that like, because they have such like they put on like a big character voice for their Dracula characters, but then get to be kind of like wimpy once shit starts hitting the fan, and that was definitely a fun element to play too, is those two different roles. And
the one thing we haven't mentioned yet is the gimmick we had was that it was a community theater production, but it was, in theory, an original Dracula play written and directed by Gideon West.
That's right. It was Gideon
Oh
West,
my God.
Dracula.
Yeah, and Chris didn't have an alter ego. He was just Gideon the whole time, right?
He was just Gideon West the whole show, and everything was a nuisance to him. Like at one point, while somebody's crying about, I think, Bloomer having died, he starts complaining that the transitions are taking too long.
Yeah.
Like at the end, as he's dying, his last line is "Finish my monologue."
Yeah. Which Michelle is the last one standing. Also, hi Michelle. She commented way earlier.
Oh, Michelle's there. Hey.
Yeah. But yeah, Michelle was the stage manager, right? That was the role.
Yeah, Michelle's job was the stage manager, and then she ends up really being the glue that holds everything together until the very end. And the end of it really, I mean, that end bit really is pretty creepy.
Yeah. And that's when because how is it staged? Michelle's finishing the monologue, and then are we all creeping up?
Yeah, she's got a spot.
Yeah, you guys are all eating Peterson. Just like upstage, and then a spotlight's on Michelle so that she's trying to do the monologue dressed as Dan,
one shoe on,
and a sock on her hand to represent Peterson's character, and she's trying to read the script that is covered in blood to finish this monologue, and then it ends with Eric the zombie like grabbing her and pulling her out of the spotlight, and then it goes dark.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And then there's a moment where like there's a curtain, there's like a fake curtain, right? But it's just everybody dead laying down on stage and the emergency broadcast again, right?
Yeah. The end of it is, this is the emergency broadcast. If you're hearing this, we're all dead.
Yes.
Broadcast at the end of the show.
And then the Dawn of the Dead music, the Goblin soundtrack.
Yeah.
And then everybody just one arm up while you're all dead on stage, wave, and then that was our curtain call. Yeah,
very, 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 very fun moment at the end. And also Michelle wants to know if we can get us some water, which is another recurring bit of hers.
Yeah.
Just drink some water.
Drink some water. They'll be fine.
You're not feeling
Okay, cool. So let's talk about you did get 2 chances to do it, and you made some tweaks and changes to improve and make it more efficient in between the first and second year. But if you were going to do another run of it tomorrow or start it tomorrow, what would you change? What would you definitely keep the same?
I'd applaud myself for starting it right after Halloween, because I feel like we'd need a year to really get it going the way we wanted to.
December 25th.
Yep.
Finally. Yeah.
Yeah, get a whole year to put the props and together.
Yeah.
As opposed to a month.
Well, truly, that's like I said, it gives me a ton of anxiety just thinking about the costume, the effects, the makeup, the all the added elements. There's sound design too, and some, minor set pieces. You had like a table and blah blah blah.
When you put it that way, cracks me up, because after Stage Fright, I remember Space Fight, Jen saying, "God, I'm never gonna do this to myself again." Because she made all the Stormtrooper, like the Darth Vader costume.
The next show is going to be simple. It's going to just be suits and ties, and that's it. And
it's our town. Oh, wait. Oh, we can do a zombie show? Oh, let's get fucking nuts. Okay, great. Perfect.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Pete, we'll start. We'll do individual thoughts on it. What would you do the same? What would you do differently?
Oh, man. I would do a lot of it the same. I would definitely use the video to help me direct it again, because I remember this when we did it the next year, we started that same scene and I was like, how the fuck did we do that? Right. I got to break it all down into sections of this scene because it's too complicated to do all at once. I would definitely use the video. That would help.
Try to skip the decision-making fatigue.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, like the differences, because the differences in the first run to the second run, the final transition, that's just Peterson and Michelle trying to figure out how two people are going to play 6 characters while fighting off zombies. Like we streamlined that from the first year to the second year, and that was the only editing we did. Mm-hmm. We actually made a deal with PJ. We were like, if we can trim this one scene, can we have more blood next year? And he said, sure. So we did that.
That seems like a fair trade.
Hey, he bought it.
Said yes.
All right.
But that was the only tweak to the script, and like, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change too much. I would definitely want to do more blood and make it.
Yeah, let's be honest. It was a pretty awesome show. What you don't have to come up with things you would change just for the sake of it. It was. I mean, you guys were pretty flawless about it.
The cast was amazing. The special effects were incredible. And you had mentioned the sound design. I needed 3 computers.
Oh, really?
Because I needed some sound to come from backstage, some sound to come random speakers.
Because there were the sounds of the zombie apocalypse happening outside. So there were, the zombies moaning and banging and, helicopters crashing and gunshots.
And I had made a hour and a half long sound effect of the zombie apocalypse happening outside. And if I tried to play that and then do the other sound effects, it would crash the program. So I had to put the zombie apocalypse on one. I had to put the zombie apocalypse on one computer,
as people do. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then there was another computer that was just the sound effects that were supposed to be happening in the Dracula play. And then another computer for the sound effects that was what was happening. Like at one point, Michelle says she's going to board up the windows. So in the next scene, throughout the entire scene, you hear hammering, but it's only backstage. And then I had to design it so that it was coming out of different speakers. So it would sound like she was moving, what she was boarding up. So that was a giant pain in the ass. That's what I would do different. I would make sure I still have those sound cues.
Yeah. I had to get a stage manager and a backstage manager, and
collect all the things you did.
It was the most fun pain in the ass, though, because there were so many problems. It was so much problem solving to try to engineer these different layers. But it was really cool just to be like, oh wait, I didn't think about that. Oh wait, okay, we'll have to do this. Oh, this doesn't work. Okay, what's plan B? Oh, well, that doesn't work. Okay, cool. Let's try plan C then. Okay.
Totally, yeah.
But, in the second run, I don't even remember how it started. Jeff started doing this bit where he would sing the Cheers theme song as a zombie.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think he was just having fun. Like when we were rehearsing, he would be bullshitting around, pretending to be in zombie voice while playing the covers on the
piano. So that got added to the show at one point. As a zombie, he sang the Cheers theme.
Yeah. And Jen, you already said that you would want more of the blood special effects. Let me ask you this. Would you ever look to do it in a larger space? Did you ever think about taking it to other theaters or expanding it?
We did. I think anytime it started to come up, either theaters kind of had, already had their October programming on lock, or it's something that we should have been coming at way earlier than we had been, but we were just working on other stuff. So
it would hit August and September. It would be like, let's shop it around.
Yeah.
Have anything
they do the fall season. They do that at January.
Exactly. Yeah. But I would love to, especially after COVID will have to end at some point, and theater will have to come back at some point. Thank God. And I think
apocalypses will be funny again.
Exactly. Yeah. Right. Let's make America laugh at the apocalypse again. But I think, doing some fun, goofy, immersive theater again would really be, Yeah,
Well,
super fun.
especially after we've been trying to keep away from each other. So having like zombies come up to you, get into your personal space.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mouthing each other.
I would say, yeah, if we went to a bigger venue, I would like love to have just like zombies, like cast people as just zombies to like go into the audience and fuck with people. Like that would be a fun addition, I think.
Yeah, so like more than just the cast turning, but like
yeah, like people actually getting inside.
Oh man, if you could have an audience plant.
I think didn't we talk about doing that at one point? Wasn't there going to be some like audience plant?
I think that's what Eric was going to be first.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
It made more sense to have him be a stage manager.
Yeah.
A stagehand.
Yeah, doing stuff like any of that old school William Castle stuff that they used to do, for his shitty
buzzers under the seat. Yeah.
Anything goofy like that. Or, if we built a door to the theater that actually, we could have some glass breaking in at some point or, sugar glass or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like people would love it, especially because there's like escape rooms are such a craze right now. And there's like the more realistic and like sort of psychologically mind fucky it is, the more people like it. So it's just proof that if you made the show elements like that, I'm sure people would go nuts for it. Bob, as assistant director, was this the first show that you did some directing on, or had you done stuff like that before?
I think this is the first one. I think this is the first. Yeah, but I mean, I really had nothing to do. These guys had everything written, everything. I think this is the first one I just started doing video work on, because I think we had to do the entrance. Oh no, that was Space Fight. So, yeah, but yeah, it was fun just watching this whole process. Watching my two best friends try to figure out this big puzzle they created for themselves. So
there was a lot of, because like Jen would go and like work on props and costumes. So Bob and I would be sitting there and like, at least 3 or 4 times in rehearsal, I would look at him and go, "This makes sense, right?"
That's basically my job, just to reassure him, like, "You're doing good, kids.
This is what's supposed to happen, right?" Okay,
right. That's funny. Yeah. So just jumping back real quick to the cleanup thing, because I'm trying to think of like things that I learned as a first show experience.
They're not all that messy.
Right. But I think it's a little tiny thing, but like cleaning up after the show, it is so hard, because like to do the cleanup, if everybody does it, then it goes pretty quickly. But it's also very difficult when you have like friends and family coming to the show, and you want to like go say hi to them and everything. And so I don't know, like what I know, I'm sure that there were like tough directions to give of like everybody clean up immediately after the show, or like you get 15 minutes to go out and say hi to people and then come back. But I remember being like, I feel like we should be cleaning up, but I also feel bad that my family's out there. Like, what are your thoughts as directors on like, I don't know, like, would you tighten that or loosen it with another run?
I think ideally, if we were doing this at a larger space, or even just doing it again, having a few more crew hands would probably be helpful, and having people who were maybe.
Yeah, and also like it was a big enough cast that like if you had family and friends out there, you could go talk to them. There's still 8 other people who maybe didn't have family come and see that show. So like it was a big enough cast that there was always at least a couple of people who got started right away. So it was never like I never felt like I had to like parent anyone. Like,
sure,
all right, come on back. All right, fun time's over. You got to clean. There was it was pretty. There was always someone cleaning up right away.
Yeah,
and it was cool too, because like everybody was just gung ho about it. Everybody was like, "Yeah, it's part of the show. We just gotta." In my Victorian costume, I gotta mop up this blood real quick. It's like nobody bitched about it. Nobody was like, I don't want, like, nobody complained about having, like, everybody was just so on board to help with everything. It was very cool.
I hope the cast really had a sense when they were coming into this of the amount of work they'd be putting in beyond just learning some lines and doing some blocking, because it really is. I mean, it was an intense show.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know,
and we got everybody that we wanted. Our first choice for every character we got, which almost
never happens. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Getting yeses workload
for every phone call was very cool. Getting yeses for every phone call was very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's just nice when things fall into place the way you picture them.
Yeah.
Especially with so many roles and elements in mind. But yeah, well, we can wrap it up there. This is such a great conversation about one of my all-time favorite shows that will always have a special place in my heart. I'm sure the same is true for you three as well. And for many people who came to see it, including my mom. And
people still talk about it. People still ask me about it, you know.
Yeah.
10 years later.
Somebody
earlier this year, Peterson mentioned what possibly remount back when, before times, about like had I ever thought about remounting it? And recast, just the thought of recasting a bunch of parts gave me a headache, and so I stopped thinking about it.
So he released a global pandemic, so he wouldn't have to do it. Yeah.
Such a Pete move. Such a Pete move, Peter.
On me, guys.
Okay, before we go, we got just a comment on the hard work from Michelle, who says, I think we knew it was going to be hard work, but we didn't know the extent. It was so worth it, though, because we all loved it so much and had so much pride in it. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. And first experience for me, and truly, I was like, I don't know how much work you're supposed to do or not do. And the only real thing that I had known before was forensics, which is a pretty it's highly detailed rehearsal and whatnot. So I was used to being meticulous about that kind of stuff, and I don't know, taking pride in like staying to clean up or staying to take care of business. So you get out of it what you put into it. We all put a lot into it and got so much out of it. So I agree with that, Michelle. Okay, great. Pete and Jen, thanks so much for joining.
Yes, thank you.
Is there any...
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Did a thing.
Anything you want to plug or mention that's going on? Anything at all? Or just
I have a podcast I do with my friends Matt Rose and Matt Noss called Transmissions from the Dark Side. We are recording sporadically at this point, but we're going through Tales from the Dark Side and Monsters. So if you like anthology horror or listening to people blather, you can find that on wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh,
nice. And on Gabber Media, where
it's on Gabber Media, yes.
where Improv FAQ is also found. Pete, anything for you?
Yeah, I got stuff.
Nice.
I do all of it with you, James. Go Labs on Tuesdays.
Not this Tuesday, though.
Not this week. We want
Why is something going on?
Yeah, what are you guys doing? Is it a party?
The actual apocalypse.
And then every other Friday on Go Comedy's Facebook page, we do date night. And then I'm not going to promote all of Go Comedy's streaming shows right now. I'm involved. It's a lot.
Hey, James, is there something you would like to promote?
Hell yeah. Speaking of Halloween weekend, I just released Stories to be Murdered by as a Halloween horror release.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I got a copy.
Yeah. That's on Bandcamp and YouTube, Apple Music and Spotify. And slowly making its way to everywhere else. If you're looking for it anywhere else, it'll trickle in on other platforms. But Stories to be Murdered by. And I guess I can also say that tomorrow I'm actually going to do a 10-minute spot in front of the Planet Ant home team live stream, which will be some kind of performance drawing from that album. So that's tomorrow at 7:30.
Awesome.
Oh yeah, and then I'm also on Monday nights on Planet Ants streaming sites. I perform with the home team.
Bada boom.
Bada boom.
Bob, do you have anything to promote?
I'm building the Ford Bronco now, so if anybody wants to buy a quality car, Ford Bronco, baby.
Do you know anything else you want to plug, Bob?
God, no, I do this.
Okay. Thanks again for joining. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on Improv FAQ at length. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.